Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. And this has been quite a week. And I wanted to comment on it because I think it's very important that you understand. This is probably a little more sophisticated for the average bear, but what you need to understand is that we've started a trade war. And trade wars end up in stopping trade. And when you don't have trade, you don't make money. And when you don't make money, you go broke. And when you go broke, you wipe out. And it's called the Depression. Now, despite the blow and go about the trade tariffs and also the deficits, understand that China didn't come over with a gunship. They didn't make you go to the Walmart store and buy the Chinese dog shit. You did it all by yourself. And the reality is that the balance of trade deficit is one of several deficits, and it represents goods and services rendered, mostly goods. The one thing most often quite the trade goods. Now, under Donald Trump, we are destroying our trade relationships. And this is going to be very ugly. There will be less money, less jobs, less people. Because remember, there's the other half of the trade. In other words, you've got that Chinese spatula made in Guangdong, and it goes on a boat. Well, the boat is crewed by people from around the world. It's now going to the port. Well, now at the port, you have people who unload the boat. Then you got this guy called Mother Trucker. Hey, John, Mo, trucker. And the trucker guy's going down there playing that Merle Haggard tape with that 18-wheeler, now 20-wheelers. And he's delivering that container to the local spatula shop. Now it has to be inventoried in. It has to be shelved, boxed, priced, advertised, marketed, and sold to you. So the journey of a product that begins in China has many hands that profit from it, many people that handle it. And for a man like Donald Trump, I mean, all he understands is pushing and pinching stuff, and that's a two-step process. You know, I always look at cultures and ask how complicated are their tools and how complicated are their weapons. You know, how many moving parts? Is it a spear or is it an AK-47? Is it a machete or is it an RPG? Is it five guys in a mob running down the street, or is it an Abraham's tank? And what I found is that simplistic is usually stupid. Now, we have two exits. We've got the Brit exit, which is the English leaving the British Union. And the main story there is that it's the customs union. It's the free flow of goods between the European members without duties. Now, we have America, and we call it the Mara exit. And that's America exiting an NAFTA deal with Mexico and exiting the deal with Canada. Europe, we have not started an official trade war with yet, except for steel tariffs and aluminum, but we'll get around to it. And we have the Chinese tariffs. Now, what happened this week was the Brit exit talks fell apart. Now, when you understand the Brit exit, what you understand is that it is one of the largest buyers of goods out of Europe. Yeah, they didn't tell you buyers. And in return, England is a finance, banking, and trading center. So they want to undo all this. As we speak, bankers are asking their tradespeople that I know, do you want to go to Amsterdam or do you want to go to Germany? And let's pick the offices that we're going to set up and where, because the bankers can't wait. So in the event of a crashing out of the European Union, which is exactly what's going to happen, bankers need to know they have a home. So for a banker, setting up other trading operations to solve the jurisdictional problems is something that's in the works as we speak now. Now, the problem is that the big exporters of food, of manufactured goods out of Europe into England are very worried about how this is going to come unglued, okay? What does this end up really being? And it is a bit of a mystery. Now, understand the problem is a crack of the European Union is an event that scares the shit, I mean literally scares the shit out of Europeans, except for the Germans. Now, the European Union is basically Germany conquering Europe. Germany is the largest export powerhouse. It is the two-ton gorilla. It is the wealthiest nation. And if you, by some measures, oftentimes you have more goods and services exported by Germany than you do by China. Yeah, you didn't know that. Yeah, they're among the top 3 in the world almost every time we measure it. And they're also a very high value exporter, which means that there's a lot of profit. See, America has unfortunately got, when we're talking about goods, unfortunately has got itself in a situation where we export soybeans. And, oh, don't forget corn, and some pork products, some chicken products. And these are not kind of like new age, new world products, and they're not very high profitable. Japan, for example, with its dominance in semi-chips, computers, high-value electronic silicone parts, is a high-value exporter. You know, you get a ton of silicone, and you get that ton, which is worth several $100, and you turn it to chips where you got $1 billion. So you can see it's high value, and that's why the Japanese are so prosperous. Now, the problem is that trade policy in America is being run by Donald Trump, who will not make complete his first term. And Donald Trump doesn't understand business. See, being a realtor and developer, and if you are when you know what I'm talking about, doesn't mean you're a businessman. And in fact, usually a piss poor one. Let me count the ways builders and developers go broke. We all know them, right? Gotta buy now because the property ladder is going up. Oh, bullshit. I have seen real estate wipe out almost systematically every 5 years all my life. I've never bought a piece of property retail. I buy them to stress and laugh. And it is amazing how these wipeouts come with frequency, and it's amazing how people don't see it. All I can say is more money for me. So you've got a situation where people are not realizing the crisis that is happening in the U.S. economy. And would be driven, like I said, by a realtor who doesn't understand that less than 10% of the jobs in America are manufacturing jobs, okay? And they are low-paying and mostly low-skilled. And they're not part of the equation any longer in a modern world. Does Donald Trump understand that? Well, I would say, hell no, definitely not. Now, the other problem you've got is by pandering to coal miners and pandering to factory workers and pandering to these low-level people, we're putting the entire trading system of the United States of America in jeopardy. And this is the kind of move that's going to end up ending very badly. I don't think people realize the crisis that is building on the world front over these trade wars and how very poor they will be for us. They will not end up well. So America is going down a slippery slope of a trade war that ends in a depression. Donald Trump is the leader of the band, and he's using it for political points, nothing more. We don't want to be a great manufacturing nation. We really don't. We want to be an engineering nation. We want to be a CAD-CAM nation. We want to be an artificial intelligence. We want to be augmented reality. We want to go into these new structures that represent the future. Donald Trump wants to take us backwards because all he understands is backwards, and this went up very badly. So now that you understand that, you need to follow very closely, because what's going to happen with these trade wars that Donald Trump is starting is he's going to allow dominance. See, Donald Trump kind of said, it costs too much money for that military base over there. Where you said it was, South Korea? You got 70,000 troops there? That's a lot of money. Well, and why do we have troops there? Well, it's because we have a war, and like the general said, we're trying to prevent World War III. Donald Trump doesn't understand that. Donald Trump doesn't know where the South China Sea is. Donald Trump does not attend for the intelligence briefings. Donald Trump wouldn't understand what they were talking about anyway. So he understands, well, coal, that black stuff, yeah, we'll make that great again. Coal. So, you've got a man that is derelict in his duty. I really believe the 25th Amendment applies to him. And you need to understand this. Our little voices are not going to change this. We had Walmart, Kmart, and 300 of the biggest retailers come out and warn this week about this trade war mistake, about higher prices for the American consumer. And you need to understand that this is not just about the midterm elections. Donald Trump has got to position himself, for the next presidential election. But he also has to position himself for what happens after the election. Now, do you know what happens after the election? Let me give you a little clue. After the election, Donald Trump is going to fire poor Sessions, and I think he should fire Sessions and end the pain. And Donald Trump is going to go ahead and end the investigation and hope he can survive this. Now, what he's using for cover will be the trade wars, which will get far worse. Meanwhile, China's making haste. China is moving at breakneck speed to fill the gap of America isolationism. China is going to Latin America, it's going to Africa. They went to Venezuela, did $5 billion, and they sent a hospital ship. So what's happening is these trade wars are giving a great opportunity to make America ungreat again, remove America as the great trading empire, lower our wealth level where we will soon be behind the Chinese, and put us at a huge global disadvantage militarily. My prediction is America will be the great soybean and corn grower and oil exporter north, but not a contender. America military will turn within. It will become diminished. We will end up in a situation where we have a huge military because we're isolated, in a sandwich between Canada and Mexico. Americans will become more impoverished, but safe, and truly, truly safe. The problem is that we're allowing the Chinese to establish a new world order. Now remember, China is still a dictatorship. It's still a totalitarian society. It still has very bad ways of approaching things, and it's not free, it's not open. Although there's been movement. Now, without America there as a competitor, without America in the South China Sea as an example, as a military force to be reckoned with, without America, Donald Trump will negotiate us away. Without America in South Korea, Japan will fall under the Chinese influence, as will South Korea, as will the Philippines. And that will extend along the Silk Road, and that will also extend to changing the situation dramatically in a little place called India, which is up and coming. So what's happened is, by not understanding labor differential rates, without understanding the reality of trade, Donald Trump has stumbled into a very divisive trade war that will end very, very badly. And Donald Trump is proud to do it. And that factory worker, hell yeah, them goddamn furs never liked the way they look. They ain't Americans, by God, I'm taking my job. So you got the beer drinking, two-fisted beer drinking, opioid addicted monster that has a leader that is speaking to, should we say, his naivety and also his nightmare. So when you understand this, you understand that we're on a very dangerous ground. And America's dominance as a world leader is fleeing very quickly. Now, even when we get rid of Donald Trump, the problem is the damage will last a very long time. So you need to understand that the road Donald Trump is taking us down is a road to a depression, a disaster, to a reduced America military, a reduced America power projected outside our borders. And that means that, the Soviet Union will rebuild itself. And that means that Europe will increasingly become more under the Russian influence, because America gets falling on its ass. We are not building trade alliances, we're destroying them. Now, if you got goods and services flowing between countries, well, that means that they tend to arm themselves. And just this week, the Chinese broke down military discussions with America, walked out of them. At the time, Donald Trump announced the 10% duty. And that was over discussions about advanced Russian radar systems and anti-aircraft weapons, Su-300, 400, being deployed by China. And I think anybody with any brains knows it's going to the South China Sea. And what you've got is, unfortunately, in this trade friction, it spills over militarily. China understands now that America's a has-been power. China understands that it can push its luck. China understands that a country that turns within itself has less money for military, has less influence to project around the world. And there's a huge gap. Now, we've already seen a vast cutting of U.S. Aid to poor nations, from Africa to Asian countries to Latin America. The aid has been cut dramatically. Having worked with AID and a lot of the aid institutions, I can tell you that when they build a road, well, that allows that factory to go in there. When they build a port, well, that allows that boat to load goods. When they build an airport, that lets tourists come in. And quickly following behind the U.S. aid programs is a lot of business. And without those aid packages, it's very difficult for you to compete. China walks in there and they hand $5 billion to Venezuela. America puts sanctions against it. China says it wants to help Venezuela develop its oil, of course, with a big heap of that going to them. And so anyway, what's happening is this movement represents short-sightedness. Like I said, Donald Trump's idea for helping South Korea is putting condominiums on a South Korean frozen beach. Oh, North Korean frozen beach. I can't wait to go there. Of course, Donald Trump also built and invested heavily in the golf course in Aberdeen, which is probably one of the rainiest places on the planet. Would you like to golf in your wellies? Well, there you go. So the man's understanding what he's doing is far different. Meanwhile, the South Koreans are trying to put factories in North Korea. The big conglomerates of South Korea are trying to do deals. And now the problem they got is Donald Trump's sanctions are stopping it. Again, I repeat to you, get the goods and services flowing across the border. Get the population tasting Coca-Cola, McDonald's hamburgers. Get them a taste for good old plain old-fashioned American consumerism, and you light the fuse of a growing economy. Get these people to China. China, for example, I'll give you a great example, spends a fortune in inhibiting access to the internet of its populations. It controls content. It controls world news, right? But what you don't understand is that Chinese masses are traveling around the world. Okay, well, when you travel around the world, click, click, all of a sudden you've got access to the forbidden fruit. They become huge consumers of news. They can now check out stories like Tiananmen Square. They understand more about the regime, okay? Now, it's the elephant in the circus thing. Once the elephant realizes that wooden stake he got around his ankle can't stop it any longer, he's free. And what you've got is the Chinese elephant, the massive population. They're going around the rest of the world. They're seeing prosperity. They're seeing factories without, a Chinese friend of mine said, I don't trust air I can't see. Well, you can see the air in China, that's for damn sure. Now they go in, they see the ecological movement. They see factories with smokestacks that don't bilge out soot. They see cars, hotels, condominiums. They have access to news. They see controversy. Without people getting arrested and hauled off to a Chinese organ donating center. So as you open up borders, as you let goods and services, people flow too. And then you open up people's eyes. Now, I have traveled, done business around the world, and the one thing I've learned about people are that, everyone like pizza, they like pizza everywhere. Oh, that chicken, they don't like that, they like Kentucky Fried Chicken. You'll find that the basic human being is very similar in their likes, their tastes, and desires, in their passions. And once the French have a saying that, once they see Paris, you can't get them back to the farm. And the thing with the Chinese population is that as more of them become tourists, as more of them buy Western goods, as more of them achieve prosperity, savings, they become investment class, they become politically active, and slowly the regime breaks down, okay? Slowly. It's a slow process. And China knows it. Why does China export so much steel? and so much aluminum at under market prices? Because they got to keep the masses employed. So they left the rice paddy. They've now got a taste. They now want jobs that pay more. The Chinese government has to subsidize the economy by keeping its workers working. Not such a bad idea. So just when we were about to have a great victory, just when our leverage over China was getting greater, China was sitting down understanding that, trade secrets. Let me tell you about a trade secret in this day and age. You may have a trade secret 6 months later. It's obsolete junk worth nothing that's already out there. China is not the only one stealing intellectual property. American companies do, especially the big companies. I can tell you about many companies that have lost intellectual property. I can tell you about fights with Qualcomm, Apple, Intel, all over intellectual property. So this bullshit that, the Chinese steal that damn their intellectual property. I don't know what that is, but Donald Trump says it's bad, so must be bad. Okay, you're the idiots among us. The reality is they're entering a trade war. We're becoming isolationist. That means really, when you shut down your borders, it's really an isolation move. And the isolation is by two great powers, America and the English, with the Brit exit and the American exit from the world trade scene, were replaced by the Chinese entry. So as Britain exits, China enters. As America exits, India comes online. So what's happening is you can see how the mantle is going to be placed from the Americans to the Chinese. And the Chinese are hearing footsteps from India. I mean, you've got the slave market. Well, you got one hell of a slave market in India. There are a lot of young, intelligent people unemployed. Huge masses. We've been involved in massive software updating as we built our terminal service. And I can tell you that a lot of the programming was done out of India at pennies on the dollar. Hey, I'm going to get some green tea here. Thank you. So, this has been a very sad week. Donald Trump announced tariffs against the Chinese. Chinese announced a tit-for-tat trade war against America. Negotiations on important things like military buildup in the South China Sea. Chinese acquiring Russian advanced weapon systems have fallen apart. And we're going to end up with a real ugly situation where America, we're not going to be great again. When empires decline, there are always strong man leaders that come and promise the people that they can solve their problem. And the reality is, it's bullshit. Donald Trump's brand of poison will destroy America as you know it.